Imagine a life where the sun beats down on your face, the wind whips through your hair, and the only sound is the rustling of animals in the distance. You're a young boy, living in a small village surrounded by the endless steppe of Central Asia. This is where the story of Tamerlane or Timur begins. You're born in 1336, in a world where the Mongol Empire has left its mark. The Silk Road, a network of ancient trade routes, stretches out before you like a golden thread, connecting east and west. Your village is a small stop along the way, where merchants and traders come to rest and refuel. As a young boy, you're fascinated by the stories of your ancestors, who were known for their bravery and conquests. They were warriors, explorers, and leaders, who traveled the world and brought back tales of their adventures. You listen with wide eyes, eager to learn more about the world beyond your village. But your life is far from ordinary. You're born with a limp, a constant reminder of your vulnerability in a harsh world. Your parents worry about your future, about how you'll survive in a world where strength and bravery are prized above all else. But you're determined to prove them wrong. You spend your days herding animals, exploring the steppe, and listening to the stories of your elders. You're drawn to the stories of the great conquerors, who built empires and left their mark on history. You dream of doing the same, of building something great and leaving a lasting legacy. As you grow older, you begin to realize that your limp is not a limitation, but a reminder of your determination. You're different from the other boys in your village, but you're also more driven. You're hungry for recognition, for the respect and admiration of your peers. You start to explore the world beyond your village, traveling to nearby towns and cities. You meet people from different cultures and backgrounds, and you're fascinated by their stories and customs. You begin to see the world in a different light, as a place of wonder and discovery. But your ambition is not without its challenges. You face obstacles and setbacks, times when you doubt yourself and your abilities. You're rejected by some, and you have to fight for respect from others. But you refuse to give up, using each rejection as a chance to learn and grow. As you rise to power, you begin to see the world in a different way. You're no longer just a young boy from a small village, but a leader, a conqueror, and a ruler. You're driven by a vision of greatness, of building an empire that will last for centuries. You face many battles, many challenges, and many setbacks. But you never give up, always pushing forward, always striving for more. You're a master strategist, a brilliant leader, and a fierce warrior. You're the one they call Tamerlane, the Lame, a name that will be remembered for generations to come. But what made you, Timur, the man you became? What drove you to conquest and destruction? Was it your limp, your ambition, or your determination? The answer lies in the choices you made, the paths you chose, and the lessons you learned along the way. As you look back on your life, you see the cost of your ambition. You see the lives you've touched, the empires you've built, and the people you've inspired. You see the beauty of the world, the wonder of discovery, and the power of the human spirit. And you realize that no one is born evil. They become shaped by time, pain, or power. You became Tamerlane, the great conqueror, through your choices, your ambition, and your determination. You became a leader, a ruler, and a legend. Your story is a reminder that we all have the power to shape our own destiny. We can choose to rise to power, to build empires, and to leave our mark on history. But we must also remember the cost of our ambition, the lives we touch, and the lessons we learn along the way. As you look out at the vast expanse of the steppe, you see the world in a different light. You see a place of wonder, discovery, and possibility. You see a world where anyone can rise to greatness, where anyone can leave their mark on history. And you know that you're not alone. You're part of a long line of conquerors, leaders, and rulers who have shaped the world in their image. You're part of a tradition of greatness, of ambition, and of determination. So as you look out at the world, remember that you have the power to shape your own destiny. Remember that no one is born evil, but becomes shaped by time, pain, or power. And remember that the cost of your ambition is worth it, for the chance to leave your mark on history, and to be remembered as a legend. In the next part of our story, we'll explore the rise of Tamerlane's empire and the conquests that made him a legend. We'll see the battles he fought, the cities he conquered, and the people he inspired. We'll learn about the cultural and geographical context of his time and how it shaped his ambitions. But for now, let's take a moment to reflect on the life of Timur, the boy who would conquer the world. Let's think about the choices he made, the paths he chose, and the lessons he learned along the way. And let's remember that we all have the power to shape our own destiny, to rise to greatness, and to leave our mark on history. As you look out at the world, remember that you're not just a spectator, but a participant. You're not just a passive observer, but an active player. You have the power to shape your own destiny, to make your own choices, and to create your own legacy. So what will you do with this power? Will you rise to greatness, or will you settle for mediocrity? Will you leave your mark on history, or will you blend into the crowd? The choice is yours and yours alone. As you ponder these questions, remember that the story of Tamerlane is not just a story about a great conqueror, but a story about the human spirit. It's a story about ambition, determination, and the power to shape our own destiny. And as you look out at the world, remember that you're part of a long line of leaders, conquerors, and rulers who have shaped the world in their image. You're part of a tradition of greatness, of ambition, and of determination. So let's continue the story of Tamerlane, the boy who would conquer the world. Let's explore the rise of his empire, the conquests that made him a legend, and the cultural and geographical context of his time. But for now, let's take a moment to reflect on the life of Timur, the boy who would conquer the world. Let's think about the choices he made, the paths he chose, and the lessons he learned along the way. And let's remember that we all have the power to shape our own destiny, to rise to greatness, and to leave our mark on history. You've probably heard of the phrase survival of the fittest. For Timur, it was a daily reality. Growing up in the vast expanse of Central Asia, he knew what it meant to struggle for every scrap of food and every moment of shelter. As a young boy, Timur's days were filled with the endless blue sky and the endless steppe. He'd spend hours herding animals, watching the sun beat down on his back, and feeling the wind whip through his hair. But it was a harsh world, and Timur's family was just one of many nomadic tribes that roamed the land. You can imagine the scene. A small village, surrounded by nothing but the endless steppe. The only sounds are the rustling of animals, the distant howl of wolves, and the occasional shout from a fellow tribesman. This was Timur's world, and it was a world of constant struggle. But Timur was different from the others. He had a limp, a reminder of a childhood injury that had left him with a permanent scar. It was a constant reminder that he wasn't like the others, that he was somehow less. But Timur refused to let it hold him back. He was determined to prove himself, to show that he was just as strong and capable as any other member of his tribe. And so, he set out to make a name for himself. He'd spend hours practicing his archery, honing his skills, and learning how to survive in the harsh environment of the steppe. He was a quick learner, and before long he was one of the best hunters in the tribe. His family was proud of him, and his fellow tribespeople looked up to him as a leader. But Timur's ambitions didn't stop there. He had a vision of a world beyond the steppe, a world of power and glory. He dreamed of one day becoming a great leader, a man who would be remembered for centuries to come. And so, he set out to make his mark on the world. He began by exploring the surrounding territories, learning about the different cultures and empires that lay beyond the steppe. He was fascinated by the stories of the ancient Silk Road, where merchants and traders would travel from China to India, carrying exotic goods and ideas. He was captivated by the stories of the great empires of Persia and India, where powerful leaders would build grand cities and conquer vast territories. And he was determined to be a part of it all. He began to make alliances with other tribes, forming coalitions and building a network of loyal followers. He was a skilled strategist, always thinking several steps ahead, and he knew just how to use his charisma and his intelligence to get what he wanted. But as Timur's power grew, so did his ambition. He began to see himself as a chosen leader, a man destined for greatness. And he was willing to do whatever it took to achieve his goals. He conquered territory after territory, building a vast empire that stretched from Central Asia to India. But with power came cost. Timur's conquests were marked by bloodshed and destruction, and the people of the territories he conquered lived in fear of his wrath. And yet, Timur saw himself as a great leader, a man who had brought order and stability to a chaotic world. The question is, how did a young boy from the steppe become a man of such power and ambition? How did he manage to shape the course of history, leaving behind a legacy that would be remembered for centuries to come? And what can we learn from his story, a story of ambition, choices, and the human condition? These are the questions we'll explore in the next section, as we delve deeper into the life and times of Timur, the man who would come to be known as Tamerlane. But for now, let's take a step back and reflect on the journey that brought Timur to where he is today. We've seen how he struggled for survival in the harsh environment of the steppe, how he used his wit and cunning to outsmart predators and rival tribes. We've seen how he began to make a name for himself, how he formed alliances and built a network of loyal followers. And we've seen how he became consumed by his ambition, how he saw himself as a chosen leader, a man destined for greatness. But what about the cost of ambition? What about the people who suffered under Timur's rule, the cities that were destroyed, and the lives that were lost? These are questions that we'll explore in the next section, as we examine the consequences of Timur's actions and the impact that he had on the world. For now, let's just say that Timur's story is a complex one, a tale of both triumph and tragedy. It's a story that raises important questions about the nature of power and ambition, and the impact that our choices can have on the world around us. And it's a story that will continue to fascinate and inspire us for generations to come. Imagine yourself standing in the scorching desert, surrounded by nothing but vast expanses of sand and the occasional rocky outcropping. This is the world of young Timur, a boy with a limp and a dream of conquest that would one day change the course of history. What happens when a young boy with a dream of conquest becomes a leader of men? As we explore the life of Tamerlane, or Timur as he's often known, you'll notice that his journey is marked by a series of pivotal moments that shaped him into the leader he became. One of the most significant factors was his ambition. From a young age, Timur demonstrated a keen strategic mind and a desire to unite the various tribes of Central Asia under his leadership. He had a vision of creating a powerful army that would conquer the known world, and he was willing to do whatever it took to achieve it. But Timur's ambitions weren't just driven by a desire for power. He genuinely believed that he was chosen by the gods for greatness. He saw himself as an instrument of divine will, destined to bring order to a chaotic world. This sense of destiny only fueled his ambition, driving him to take risks and push the boundaries of what was thought possible. And as he rose to power, Timur's conviction only grew stronger, until he was convinced that he was unstoppable. Of course, with great power comes great responsibility, and Timur's choices would have far-reaching consequences. As he conquered city after city, he left a trail of destruction in his wake. He sacked Samarkand, the ancient capital of the Timurid Empire, and reduced it to rubble. He pillaged the cities of Persia and India, leaving behind a legacy of bloodshed and devastation. But what drove Timur to such extremes? Was he simply a power-hungry tyrant, or was there something more to his story? As we explore the life of this infamous leader, you'll discover that his journey is a complex one, marked by both triumph and tragedy. And at the heart of it all is a simple yet profound truth. No one is born evil. They become shaped by time, pain, and power. Let's take a step back and imagine what life was like for young Timur. It was a simple existence, marked by the rhythms of nature and the daily struggles of survival. He herded animals across the steppe, learning the skills he would need to become a great leader. But even in those early days, Timur's ambition was evident. He was a boy with a dream, and he was willing to do whatever it took to achieve it. One of the key challenges Timur faced was his injury, a limp that would stay with him for the rest of his life. It was a constant reminder of his vulnerability, and it only fueled his determination to succeed. Despite the odds against him, Timur refused to give up. He worked tirelessly to build a reputation as a skilled warrior and leader, and eventually his efforts paid off. As Timur rose to power, he began to see himself as a chosen leader, destined for greatness. He believed that he was on a mission from God, and that his conquests were a necessary step towards creating a more just and ordered world. But as he looked out over the devastation he had wrought, it's hard not to wonder, what was the true cost of his ambition? The answer, of course, is a complex one. Timur's conquests brought great wealth and power to his people, but they also left behind a trail of destruction and suffering. He was a man of contradictions, driven by both a desire for greatness and a sense of destiny. And as we reflect on his legacy, we're left with a simple yet profound question. What happens when a young boy with a dream of conquest becomes a leader of men? In the end, Timur's story is a reminder that our choices have consequences. We may start out with the best of intentions, but as we rise to power, we must be careful not to lose sight of what's truly important. For Timur, the cost of ambition was high, but it's a lesson that we can all learn from. No one is born evil. They become shaped by time, pain, and power. And it's up to us to choose how we use our power and what kind of legacy we leave behind. As we move forward in our exploration of Timur's life, you'll discover that his legacy extends far beyond the boundaries of Central Asia. His conquests had a profound impact on the world, shaping the course of history and leaving behind a lasting legacy. But it's not just his military campaigns that are remembered. It's also the cultural and artistic achievements of the Timurid Empire, which flourished under his rule. From the stunning mosques of Samarkand to the intricate miniatures of Persian art, the Timurid Empire was a beacon of culture and learning. And at the heart of it all was Timur, a man of contradictions and complexities. He was a leader who brought order to a chaotic world, but he was also a man who left behind a trail of destruction. He was a warrior who fought for greatness, but he was also a statesman who worked to create a more just and ordered world. As we reflect on Timur's legacy, we're left with a simple yet profound question. What happens when a leader with a limp and a dream of conquest becomes a force to be reckoned with? The answer, of course, is a complex one. But one thing is certain. Timur's story is a reminder that our choices have consequences, and that it's up to us to choose how we use our power. You're about to embark on a journey through the life of one of history's most infamous conquerors, Tamerlane, also known as Timur. But before we dive into the battles and conquests, let's set the stage for this epic tale. Imagine yourself standing in the vast expanse of Central Asia, surrounded by nothing but endless steppes, rocky outcroppings, and the occasional oasis. This is the world of young Timur, a boy with a limp and a dream of conquest that would one day change the course of history. As you walk through the dusty streets of his hometown, you catch glimpses of nomadic tribes, merchants, and travelers passing through on the ancient Silk Road. The Silk Road, one of the most famous trade routes in history, was about to become a battleground. Timur's ambition and strategic mind would soon make him a master of this network, using it to spread his influence and build an empire that would span from modern-day Turkey to India. But what drove Timur's conquests? Was it a desire for wealth, power, or something more? Some historians argue that it was his desire for revenge against the Mongols, who had destroyed his family's home and left him with a limp. Others claim it was his ambition to unite the warring tribes of Central Asia under his rule. Whatever the reason, Timur's armies swept through Persia, India, and China, leaving a trail of destruction in their wake. As you follow Timur's campaigns, you'll witness the rise and fall of empires, the clash of cultures, and the devastating impact of war on innocent civilians. But it's not just about the battles and the bloodshed, it's about the human cost of ambition, the choices we make, and the price we pay for power. Let's take a closer look at one of Timur's most notable conquests, the city of Samarkand. This ancient city was a major hub on the Silk Road, known for its stunning architecture, vibrant markets, and rich cultural heritage. When Timur's armies arrived, they were met with fierce resistance from the city's defenders. But Timur was determined to claim Samarkand as his own, and he would stop at nothing to achieve his goal. The siege of Samarkand was a brutal and devastating one, with both sides suffering heavy losses. But in the end, Timur emerged victorious, and the city fell under his control. As you walk through the city's streets, you'll see the remnants of the ancient mosques, the grand mausoleums, and the bustling markets. But you'll also see the scars of war, the ruins of buildings, and the remnants of a once thriving community. As Timur's empire grew, so did his legend. He became known as a great leader, a just ruler, and a brilliant military strategist. But at what cost? The conquests, the bloodshed, the destruction, it all took a toll on Timur's own humanity. He became increasingly isolated, paranoid, and ruthless, using his power to crush any opposition and maintain control. As we reflect on Timur's story, we're reminded that no one is born evil. We become shaped by time, pain, or power. Timur's life was a complex tapestry of ambition, choice, and circumstance, woven together by the threads of history. His legacy is a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked power, the cost of ambition, and the devastating impact of war on human lives. As we conclude this chapter in Timur's life, we're left with a question. What can we learn from his story? How can we use his example to inform our own choices, our own ambitions, and our own understanding of the world? The answer lies in the complexities of human nature, the power of choice, and the importance of empathy and compassion. In the next chapter of our journey, we'll explore the aftermath of Timur's conquests, the rise of the Mongol Empire, and the impact of his legacy on the modern world. But for now, let's take a moment to reflect on the human cost of ambition, the choices we make, and the price we pay for power. Pause for 2 seconds. As you stand in the shadow of Timur's empire, remember that his story is not just about a great conqueror. It's about the human condition, the power of choice, and the importance of empathy and compassion. His legacy serves as a reminder that our actions have consequences, that our choices shape who we become, and that the price of power is often paid in blood, sweat, and tears. Pause for 2 seconds. Join us next time as we continue the journey through the life of Tamerlane, the man who would become one of history's most infamous conquerors. Behind every great leader is a story of sacrifice, but what happens when that sacrifice becomes too high a price to pay? You're now standing in the midst of a vast, arid landscape, the steppes of Central Asia, where young Timur once roamed as a boy. He was just a teenager, herding animals across the unforgiving terrain, his days filled with the endless search for food and water. But Timur's life took a drastic turn when he suffered a severe injury, leaving him with a permanent limp. This setback would have shattered the spirits of many, but not Timur. Instead, it fueled his ambition and determination to rise above his circumstances. As he grew older, Timur became increasingly obsessed with the idea of conquest and leadership. He saw himself as a visionary, a leader who was willing to make the tough decisions for the greater good. But the cost of his ambition would be devastating: thousands of lives lost, cities reduced to rubble, and families torn apart. The once thriving city of Samarkand, a jewel of the Silk Road, lay in ruins after Timur's armies descended upon it. The echoes of screams and the stench of smoke still lingered in the air, a haunting reminder of the destruction that Timur had unleashed. But Timur saw himself as a hero, not a villain. He believed that his actions were justified, that the ends justified the means. He was convinced that he was destined for greatness, that his name would be etched in the annals of history. However, the question remains, was Timur a hero or a villain? The answer lies in the choices he made. Did he truly believe in his mission, or was he driven by a lust for power and recognition? The truth is, we'll never know for certain. What we do know is that Timur's legacy is a complex tapestry of conquest and destruction. His name has become synonymous with brutality and bloodshed, a reminder of the devastating cost of ambition. But it's also a testament to the human condition, that even the most well-intentioned individuals can be shaped by their experiences and the power they wield. As we continue to explore the life of Timur, we'll delve deeper into the events that led him to become one of history's most infamous conquerors. We'll examine the choices he made, the battles he fought, and the people he affected. and we'll try to understand the complex web of motivations that drove him to achieve greatness at any cost. So, join me on this journey through the life of Timur, a man who was both brilliant and brutal, a leader who left an indelible mark on the world. But as we walk alongside him, remember that his story is not just about conquest and destruction. It's about the human cost of ambition and the choices that shape us into who we become. You stand amidst the ruins of Timur's empire, a testament to the fleeting nature of power. What happens when a leader's legacy is forever tied to the bloodshed and destruction they caused? This is the question that echoes through the ages, a haunting reminder of the human cost of ambition. As you walk through the desolate landscape, you can't help but wonder what drove Timur to become the great conqueror he was. His empire eventually crumbled, but his name lived on, a reminder of the power of ambition and the dangers of unchecked desire. But what can we learn from Timur's story? Is he a cautionary tale or a reminder of the human condition? Let's take a step back and try to understand the environment that shaped young Timur. He grew up on the vast steppes of Central Asia, where the wind whispers secrets to the grasslands. As a boy, Timur's life was simple, herding animals, learning the ways of the nomads, and struggling to survive in a harsh landscape. But it was on these same steppes that his dreams of greatness began to take shape. As you imagine Timur's journey, you can see the threads of his destiny weaving together. The injury he suffered as a child, the limp that would haunt him for the rest of his life, became a symbol of his own fragility. Yet, it was this very weakness that fueled his ambition, driving him to prove himself in a world where strength was everything. The rise of Timur's power was nothing short of meteoric. He battled against the Mongols, the Ottomans, and the Persians, leaving a trail of destruction in his wake. But with each victory, his name grew louder, his legend spreading like wildfire across the Silk Road. And though his conquests would be remembered for their brutality, it was the cost of ambition that would ultimately define him. As we reflect on Timur's life, we're forced to confront the darker aspects of our own nature. What drives us to seek power, to conquer, to dominate? Is it a desire for greatness, or a need to prove ourselves in a world that often seems cruel and unforgiving? The answer, much like Timur's legacy, is complex and multifaceted. But here's the thing. Timur's story is not just about the horrors of war or the dangers of unchecked ambition. It's about the human condition, about the choices we make, and the consequences that follow. It's about how we're shaped by our environment, our experiences, and our desires. And it's about the legacy we leave behind, a reminder of the power of our choices and the impact they have on the world around us. As you stand amidst the ruins of Timur's empire, remember that his story is a cautionary tale, but also a reminder of the human condition. It's a testament to the power of ambition, but also a warning of the dangers that lie within. And it's a reflection of the choices we make, the consequences we face, and the legacy we leave behind. As you walk through the vast expanse of the Central Asian steppes, you can't help but wonder how a young boy like Timur became one of the most feared leaders in history. No one is born evil, they become shaped by time, pain, or power. Think about it. What would drive someone to commit acts of violence and destruction on a massive scale? Perhaps it's the same forces that shape us all: our choices, our ambitions, and the power we wield. Timur's story is a reminder that our choices have consequences. He was born into a world of nomadic tribes and warring empires, where strength and cunning were the keys to survival. As a young boy, he herded animals across the steppes, learning the value of hard work and perseverance. But Timur's life took a dramatic turn when he suffered a serious injury that left him with a permanent limp. This setback could have broken him, but instead, it fueled his ambition to rise above his circumstances. As you imagine Timur's early struggles, you might wonder what drives someone to pursue greatness at any cost. Perhaps it's the desire for recognition, for power, or for the thrill of conquest. Whatever the motivation, Timur's choices set him on a path that would lead to unimaginable destruction. He battled his way to the top, leaving a trail of bloodshed and despair in his wake. But here's the thing. Timur's story is not just about his successes or failures. It's about the human condition. We can learn from Timur's mistakes and strive to become better leaders, better citizens, and better versions of ourselves. As you reflect on his life, consider this question. What will you do with the power and influence you have? Will you use it to build up or tear down? The choice is yours, and the consequences will be yours to bear. As we close this chapter on Timur's life, we're left with a haunting reminder. Our choices have the power to shape not only our own lives but also the lives of those around us. His story is a testament to the enduring power of ambition and the devastating cost of unchecked power. But it's also a story of hope, a reminder that we can learn from our mistakes and strive to become better, wiser, and more compassionate leaders. As you walk away from the steps, remember the lessons of Timur's life. Remember that no one is born evil, but rather shaped by the forces of time, pain, and power. And remember that the choices we make have the power to shape the world around us. The question is, what will you do with the power you have?